The kingdom of Easter began with the fall. Well, no, it actually began in the garden. This is the world God created. This is the world for men. A world without suffering, pain, sorrow, without death, at least in the realm of men. What does he tell us that we're headed to? That same thing, right? That's what we're created for. That's why when we experience death, something cries out into us. This was never meant to be. These relationships were never to be broken this way. This is why it's good to grieve deeply at the death and loss of a human being, because we were never created to experience it. That's why a lot of the laws around the temple had to do with you touch a dead body, you can't serve priest. Why? Because around his kingdom, death does not exist. It's understanding this, and this is the whole idea behind the Sabbath. You like these. I love just studying and wrestling with the Old Testament, especially. And I like there's certain things like, yes, honor your father and mother. We can turn that into a legalistic thing, but we see that you were slaves in the land of Egypt, and now I'm giving you a biblical social architecture that's going to create something other than what you experience in Egypt, but it's an inheritance that must be passed from generation to generation. It's a connecting with an inheritance of past generations, not a legalistic authoritarian model for radical programmatic submission. You see what I mean? You say, well, that sounds a little bit harsh, but no, I've been in cultures where they're literally like that. Even to the point like I was born a little bit before you, so you have to serve me like a slave. It does exist. It's part of the fallen world, right? So the Sabbath law was one of these Sabbath laws. You're like, everything in the moral law of the Ten Commandments makes total sense and has so much depth and so much glory to it. But then the Sabbath law, like, let's be honest, you wrestle with it. You can have all kinds of great ideas and you're like, but it still just kind of falls short a little bit of the weight that it should have for sitting in the Ten Commandments, right? Because it has to have some real radical, world-transforming weight for it to have a place in the Decalogue, right? But when you understand the garden, what is it? And you still understand the pre-flood history. What was it? There's a promise. Messiah will come. He will bring you back to the city whose builder and founder is God, right? This is the world that you were created for. This is the world you belong to. Remember the Sabbath because it's a memory. This is our home so that we don't look to the world to make a home, so that we don't give into the politics of power, but we look for that Sabbath. Oh, now it makes total sense. I can't really be moral unless I can see this is what I was created for. Oh, yeah, now it fits perfectly, right? And so you've got the fall. One of the hearts of the fall is man is God. I'm trying to speed it up, but it's hard. Man is God. Yeah, we all get that. What did I do? I am my own God. I am the center of the universe. Everything revolves around me. It's a plague of humanity. It makes us miserable to live with. But it's also natural to every extent. We're born that way, aren't we? I am the center of everything, And part of the growing in grace is to let that die and become others, to actually become genuinely loving. But if man is God is the seed of sin, the state is God is what it leads to. What do you mean? Man is God, eventually some man using the politics of power, tyranny, and oppression, using things that are out of bounds in the kingdom like manipulation and domination, they end up lording it over others and oppressing others and using them for their selfish ends. The kings of this earth seek to lord it over one another, but it shall not be so in my kingdom. And he is the greatest shall be least and servant of all. Total inversion. These two kingdoms cannot coexist. They do overlap in this world, but you see what I mean? They're so radically other what Jesus came to bring. And so the world has suffered under all kinds of pain, trauma. The experiences that people live through are all rooted in this fact of the fall of man. And the worst expressions of it are radical forms of tyranny and oppression and a loss of what it means to be human. And then Jesus came declaring the arrival of the kingdom and preaching the gospel of the kingdom. And that is at the heart of what we have to recover in the Church of Jesus Christ if we're going to radically transform the world. If we read the Gospels, we'll discover, the scriptures say he went around everywhere teaching and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, right? So it must be everywhere in his teaching. But if we don't see it, then Lord, open our eyes to see it. Lord, help us to see it, right? I mean, because that's really what we have to do. Lord, open our eyes so that we can see what the Father's doing, so that we can join you in what you're doing. But if I can't see what he's doing, I can't join him in what he's doing. And so Jesus, and this stuff hopefully will make sense, and I can see we're not going to get very far today. But hopefully it will make sense, and hopefully it will be useful, and hopefully we'll wrap it up at the right time in some valuable manner. But Jesus, I mean, I think people have this sense, and they wrestle, because there's a sense of duty. There's all kinds of things that people wrestle with, and they can't figure it out. Because we know God instituted the Jewish religion, for example, and we know that he's ordained these as leaders in the Jewish, and they know this is what they're saying, and this is what the system is. But something in me says the system is broken. And we could go on all kinds of side journeys like, well, hey, have we forgot that a world of justice is what the justice system is supposed to create? Or have we made it a game where the powerful win? And we forgot what it's all about. I mean, you see, there's implications to this. The more we know what the Easter kingdom is and how it operates and understand the principles, does it empower us and equip us to deal with the problems that we are facing in our own world today? And gives us the courage to do it, the power to do it. We're not afraid of death anymore. We're not afraid of the sacrifice because it's worth it. Because I'm thinking about our children and our children's children. And we're not going to do it in a self-righteous way or judgmental way. We're going to do it with compassion and grace, but we care enough about justice and injustice that we are going to become revolutionaries, but not with resentment, not with anger, not with hatred, not with fear, because those things cannot create a world of liberty. We're not going to do point blame. We're going to take responsibility because we see what the Father's doing. We've sat at his feet, listened to his word, and let it transform us from the inside out. Amazing ideas. Create an army of believers who have wisdom and have grace and have love and are equipped to go and put in order. So the gospel of the kingdom, Jesus comes along, and people, we know we're supposed to go to Jerusalem to worship. I mean, God commanded us in his word, and so we have to do it, but something feels so off that the court of Gentiles is filled with money changers. Well, I mean, why do we need to, this whole court of Gentiles doesn't be used anyway because the Gentiles aren't really coming, so they're just making money changers. I don't know what they were thinking, how they, people are people. The fall of man is real, and it's ugly. But the people are also being fleeced when they come to worship, and something in them has to say, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. But also there's power structures, and you could die for even speaking, and we'll see this more later. The kingdom of this world versus the kingdom of Easter. So Jesus comes along, and the first sign, I'm being funny here. I don't know, it's not technically the first sign, like miracles, when you're like the water into wine and stuff. But it's a sign in another sense because we have to think differently. Signs point to something. It's trying to show us something. So Jesus goes into the temple, and he overchanges the money changers. You will not make my Father's house a den of thieves. It's meant to be a house of prayer for all nations. And the people are going, why is he not afraid to die? Literally, why is he not afraid to stand against the system? Don't they know what they could do to him? Good Friday's coming, isn't it? You started that fight right there that day, didn't you? Yeah, because I will not give in to that kingdom. I will die for this kingdom because people matter. It's powerful stuff, isn't it, to think about? And then you go on and you see, like, the battle over the Sabbath. I was telling you what the Sabbath is about, this principle of remembering where we come from. But the religious leaders had made it something totally other than, because they didn't get to the heart of the word. So Jesus heals on the Sabbath, and this becomes one of the epicenters of understanding the kingdom of Easter. If you can't see that healing on the Sabbath is a fulfillment of that law, then you don't see the kingdom. You're walking in darkness. And you read the scriptures, it becomes an epicenter of this whole conflict of the kingdoms. Isn't it amazing to think of it this way? Or, I'd say healing and miracles were the byproduct, not the essence of the kingdom. People kept missing the kingdom because of them. Right? They kept trying. The healings and the miracles are just byproducts of seeing and being committed to this kingdom that Jesus represents, that's rooted and grounded in the character and essence and nature of God himself, who is love, who is the fulfillment of the law. Right? But they would say, his brothers came and said, oh man, look at these miracles Jesus is doing. You need to go and do that in Jerusalem so everyone will see how awesome you are. And then he'll become powerful and rich and wealthy and we'll be at his side. You are trying to take this kingdom and force it into something other than the kingdom, and it can't. It doesn't work. And Jesus would have none of it. Amazing, isn't it?